Okay, hi guys, back again, Chapter 7, Stress and Well-Being at Work. It's a big topic because people suffer from so much stress, and there's all sorts of different kinds of stress, and it's also a big reason that people lose time at work. Okay, so let's talk about some basic terms. So stress, stressor, and distress. Stress is the idea that either fight or flight when faced with any kind of demand that they have. There's the stressor, which is the person or event that triggers the stress, and the distress is that happens to you, the adverse behavior that happens to you. So the stressor might be a test, it might be a presentation, it might be your car breaking down, it could be getting sick, it could be whatever. And then that's the stress response, either fight or flight, fight or flee, I guess. Fight or flight, I'm saying, not fight or fight, fight or flight, or fight or flee. And then we're going to talk about all sorts of different types of distress that occur because of the stressful events. Is that stressful? I'm sorry, that's a bad joke. Okay, there's 4 applications to stress. The first one is homeostatic or medical, and that is someone's natural steady balance or state, so your sweaty palms or rapid heartbeat could be that, or you might feel lightheaded, or you might get like your stomach might feel a little funny or whatever. Okay, second is a cognitive appraisal. So that what is stressful to one person might not be stressful to someone else, and how you perceive it determines what's stressful and not. So there's problem-focused coping, which is managing it, and emotion-focused, which is managing your response. One is to manage the stressor, the other one is to manage the response. So if the stress is a test that you haven't studied for, then maybe the way you manage the stressor is to put something else aside and study for the test. Or emotion-focused must be just like trying to focus on trying to calm yourself down in some way. Okay, so that's the second one. The third approach to stress is this idea of person-environment fit. We talk about this so much, that there's an interplay between what some instances that cause people stress don't cause other people stress. It depends on what's going on at the time, what your skill level is, when you don't really know what your expectations are, that kind of thing. Exactly what's going on. Okay, and then finally is psychoanalytic stress, which is the discrepancy between the idealized self and the actual self-image. So what is it that you think that you can be with what you actually are? Okay, so there's the release of chemical messengers, and then the activation of the nervous system and the endocrine system. Okay, so here we go. You can talk about that. We can take a look at this. As I was talking about it changes the blood and brain flow, changes the blood flow to the brain and muscle groups. Might increase your alertness, might release glucose, or suppress the immune system. Okay, so there's a couple different types of sources of stress. There's work demands, task, role, interpersonal, and physical. So you can go through the career progress, new technologies, temporal pressure, which would be time pressure, role demands, which is if you're confused about your role, either within the job itself or with your job and your role with other people in the organization, or with your own life role, or ambiguity, not too sure what you're supposed to be going on. And then interpersonal demands, emotional toxin, we talked about that, negative people in the workplace, sexual harassment in the workplace, and poor leadership. And then finally, physical demands, extreme environments, if you work out in the cold or an extremely warm situation, strenuous activities, people who work in hospitals or manufacturing or construction, dealing with hazardous substances, and then keeping up with global travel. Okay, and then the non-work demands, family expectations, child rearing and parental care, elder care, and then personal demands. Some people have, are workaholics. Some people have civic and volunteer work they have to do, or traumatic events in their life, divorce, death, illness, anything like that. Okay, so there's positive stress. The stress response is neutral. So it can sometimes stressful activities can enhance people's ability to manage themselves in stressful situations, and sometimes it can offer a needed energy boost. Okay, so individual distress, can manifest itself in terms of medical illnesses, behavioral problems, substance abuse, violence, accidents, and then depression, burnout, psychosomatic disorders, things that you bring on yourself. And then organizational distress are participation problems. We talked about that a little bit when we talked about organizational commitment. It's absenteeism, tardiness, high turnover, performance decrement, which is essentially people having poor performance, increased grievances, unscheduled machine time, and then compensation awards. Essentially, it has to do with workman's compensation. Okay, so individual factors that influence them. Sometimes the idea of the Achilles heel, that they break down at the weakest point. Maybe the weakest point is procrastination, or maybe their weakest point is taking on too much, or whatever it may be. And then gender effects. Sexual harassment is a very real and detrimental occurrence in the workplace that is still very rampant. Okay, so we talk about different people's responses. There's type A behavior patterns. A person who has a type A personality, they tend to be very competitive, time urgent, hostile. They're always looking for achievement. The people that are very high stress, that they can increase the type amount of stress they have in their lives. All right, and then one thing that's going to be very positive that influence person's response to stress is personality hardiness. That they really they can take it on. They have a lot of self-efficacy. They believe they're up to the challenge. They have the commitment. They control the situation. They have this internal locus of control. And then this whole idea also of transformational coping, just looking at things in a different way. Okay. Also, self-reliance. It's the idea that healthy, secure, interdependent pattern of behavior related to how people form and maintain supportive attachments with others. So it means that you're self-reliant, but you still have positive interpersonal relationships. Counterdependence is this idea that that leads to becoming too dependent, and the other person doesn't want you to be dependent on them, so it can break the relationship. And overdependence is this idea that you're too dependent on relationships with others at work. Okay, so preventative stress management is something that a lot of businesses are promoting now in order to decrease stress in the workplace. There's primary, secondary, and tertiary. Primary is preventative stress, in order to trying to reduce or modify or eliminate the stress, the demand of the stressor. Maybe if the schedule is too much for you and it's too hard for you to get into work at 8, maybe what they'll do is say, okay, instead of working 8 to 4, we're going to have you work 9 to 5. Secondary prevention is alter or modify the response. So I'm going to stop. I know that you can't make it to work on time because you have to drop your child off at daycare, but I'm going to ease up on you. And then tertiary prevention is this idea of healing people with symptoms of stress or strain. So that's just a nice chart. It looks at it's from the book, what the organization is going on, what the stress is, the response is, and then how it manifests itself, and then how you can prevent it. It's a primary, secondary, tertiary. Okay, and then in terms of the organization, sometimes you have to redesign change the jobs. Maybe one person can't take on all the things that they've been given. Maybe they need to focus on goals to clarify what's going on. They should renegotiate what people's goals are, offer support systems, that kind of things. All right. Social support at work and at home. So there's the organization. You can see that the organization, the family, your church, your synagogue, your mosque, what kind of clubs you might belong to, and then any kind of professional help you might need. It's important to seek that out. And then different ways that the individual can prevent stress in their own life. Again, primary, secondary, tertiary, positive thinking, time management, participating in leisure activities. So you get there, before the stress occurs, but let's say the stress has occurred, get physical exercise, relaxation, diet. And then tertiary prevention is, opening up, being able to talk to someone. It's important that you're able to talk to someone, and if needs be, professional help, which there is no shame in getting professional help. And then finally, what can managers do? Try to create a healthy environment, help people adjust to new technologies. Technology is constantly changing, or any kind of new processes in the workplace, so that people don't feel nervous about going in and doing their job because they don't know how to use the new computer program or the new piece of machinery. Be sensitive to early signs of distress so you can keep an eye out for it. Be sure to be understanding about the gender, personality, and behavioral differences, which of course you guys all are now from studying the personality chapter in this class. And try to have preventative stress management. Okay, so that's super quick. A less than 12-minute look at stress, but important. And again, I encourage you to spend time looking at the book. It's something in the long run that really can help you. At some point in our life, we all deal with stress, even from a very young age, and it's stress is inevitable, and we can't necessarily avoid it, but we can manage how we respond to it. And if we respond to it in positive ways, it's going to make for a healthier physical and psychological situation. Okay, so that wraps up for this section. And again, as I've said before, please contact me if you have any questions, and either email, or you should have my phone number. Okay, thanks guys.